Welcome, everybody. And Alok Da, we are live. We are recording, so we can start. So I'm going to open with an interesting statement that perhaps the deepest partition is not the partition of nations, right? Or between India, Pakistan, between East and West, but within human consciousness itself. So if that is true, then what would reconciliation really mean? So I welcome Dr. Alok Pandey to this opening TRW 2026 dialogue in this context. Dr. Pandey is a former Indian Air Force doctor and a spiritual seeker at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, an author, philosopher, and integral yoga scholar. Our subject of focus is India and world unity. And today is Guru Purnima, the full moon of July, dedicated to the higher consciousness that guides us. So welcome, Alok Da.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
So I'm also going to ask.
I would say Jai Ma, Jai Bharati.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. Jai Bhavani Bharati. Yes, and Jai Gurudev. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Nivedita, as co-host, please make sure you keep admitting all the people who come. You will see a pop-up saying admit all. So please make sure you're admitting everyone because.
Yes, I'm admitting.
Okay.
Yes, done. I'll take it.
Super. So we can dive right in, Alok Da. I am so excited about going deeper into this topic with you. And when we discussed the focus of today's call, saying, yes, the theme of this year's Truth and Reconciliation Week, which is in its 7th edition after 2020 when we started. This year, the theme is partition of nations. But instead of focusing on the pain and the trauma of the partition of India, you chose to actually change the focus to say India and world unity, right? So in that, the first question from me is, can we go into the deeper meaning of partition? While we often think of partition as a political event, Sri Aurobindo invites us to see history through the evolution of consciousness. And from that perspective, what is the deeper root of human separation? And what does true unity actually mean?
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share thoughts and vision of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Now, to understand the roots of partition, we have to understand the roots of division. And to understand the roots of division, we have to go back to the very original plan. And that plan, which is, let's say, the divine plan in the great unfolding is Eko Ham Bahushyam. The one wanted to become many. So that's how it all starts. And since the one is a complex unity or an infinity, many does not imply sameness. It implies many-foldedness. It implies endless differentiation. And that's precisely what we see in nature everywhere, at every level, material, biological, psychological, and spiritual. We see that there is a unity in the background and there is differentiation on the surface. Now, this differentiation also, in a way, it reproduces the unity in the sense that it's an interconnectedness. Like you see the stars. There are so many stars, but they are deeply interconnected. But what happens when each unit begins to believe or feel that it is separate and is not connected with the rest? And that's where this subtle distinction between the ego self and the true self comes in. There is in us a self, which Aurobindo calls it the psychic being, which understands the sense of unity deep behind. At the same time, it understands its own unique expression of that unity. As long as we live in that, it's perfectly fine. That's what we see the Sanatana Dharma is about, that there is at the root a single reality, But at the same time, this reality expresses itself in countless ways. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. So when this is forgotten at the individual level, we have quarrels when we forget that. At the collective levels, we have strangely either the impulse towards world empires, hegemony, religious conversion, so that the whole world can be flattened into a uniformity which we think is unity, but that's not unity. But the real solution lies in discovering the unique expression of each nation, each individual, each collective group, at the same time, while keeping in the background the one consciousness from which all has emerged. It's a challenge because the human mind cannot take these two, or in fact, human mind cannot, by its nature, synthesize to it, says either or. So many times people say spirituality or materialism. They don't realize that, well, matter is an instrument of the spirit. Same with East and West. They are not East or West. So the Western materialism becomes a powerful instrument of Eastern spiritual thought. And if we understand the whole, all the nation unit, individual units at every level, then life becomes wonderful and we enrich each other. But when we forget that, which is what the ego makes us believe, that I am separate and I am independent of the rest, then there is a problem, conflict, quarrel, wars, and so on and so forth. So to me, it's not flattening into uniformity. Nature has tried it, human beings have tried it, but to have unity in diversity. That is the challenge, a great challenge for human beings. And it can be only possible, one last sentence, that when we discover the ultimate substrate. So just like in matter, we have the substrate is atoms. So in biology, the substrate is cell. In the mind, the substrate is sound, from which words and language, for example. So substrate, we have to discover the root language from which all other languages emerge. So in spirit, the substrate is found in the human soul, the psychic being, and of course, the spirit itself, the divine consciousness, where one and the infinite are together. So this is the great discovery and the great truth that India has to reveal to the world. Yes. It's not blurring of distinction, but enriching the distinction, drawing inspiration from the one.
So building on that opening, it feels such a bridge too far right now, isn't it? You know, humanity is at such an evolutionary crossroads. So
Yes.
Sri Aurobindo wrote that humanity is passing through an evolutionary transition. So looking at the world today with its conflicts, polarization, and uncertainty, where do you think humanity stands in that journey to this incredible place you just described? And what is trying to emerge through this global crisis?
Yes, wonderful. So basically, it's a far off land. Let's accept that. That's reality. Um, at the same time, the fact that there are individuals, I mean, I look at it very simple example. People say, where are the individuals? So I say, right now, here itself, you see, this is an idea which has been presented by you, as a podcast, and different podcasts now, different people are exploring it in their own way. And there are youngsters who are joining. There are people who are interested, they want to understand. And the fact that some human beings begin to feel about it or imagine it, that the hope has come nearer. So, like we see with everything at the material level, Da Vinci dreamed of an aircraft, or much earlier, he drew the diagram, but Rishi Bharadwaj drew the aircraft diagram, spoke about it, or Valmiki dreamed of the Pushpak Viman. Eventually, it manifests. So, human beings are beginning to conceive of this possibility of unity in diversity. And very interestingly, the world is taking us towards that. Look at travel. I mean, I've seen this in my own little lifetime, that there was a time when if on an Indian city or platform, you saw, let's say, an African, so it was like queer, strange. Or if one saw a white woman or a white man, despite, so much interchange, it was a kind of instinctive remark. But now we are moving into a world where we don't accept racism. We understand uniqueness of each country, which is beautiful because it has to contribute that. But at the same time, thanks to air travel, thanks to communication, uh, world is moving. There is a lot of currents and cross currents forced to mix together. And this initially will lead to conflict because they are opposing currents. So there'll be misunderstanding, confusion. But the very fact, like put five people together in a space in which they are struggling for survival, at some point, some level, they will start having a dialogue. So this is the phase which has started. And though by far off, maybe 200, 300 years, whatever it is, but this is the direction nature has taken. The second aspect is that which makes it a far off event really is that we need to make a leap from the mind to something higher than the mind. We call, for the sake of convenience, let's use the word spirit or the original impulsion to divine or deep within us. That transition is important because at the mental idea, we can have an idea that yes, we should grow one and yet keep the diversity, but the mind finds it very difficult to handle beyond the idea. So we have to enter into that truth where we experience the spirit, the divine, the psychic being as a living reality. Now, this is where I think some of us are heading, or maybe many of us, and that's where lies the hope. And it has a cascading effect. There is a beautiful line in Savitri: more and more souls shall enter into the light. So it'll start with a few individuals, and then slowly there will be a critical tipping point, as it is said, and suddenly we'll see a cascading effect. In this itself, I'm seeing, since Corona, there is such a cascading effect. The interest that people have begun to take, even in Sri Aurobindo's thought in these great ideals, is amazing. So definitely we can see that as human consciousness evolves, which it is destined to evolve, there will be a cascading effect and a multiplying effect. There is a term for it, butterfly effect, whatever. But there is an interesting part that you have raised, and I must just very briefly, one sentence touch upon it, that for man, now the beauty is, as I always say that there is a plan B ready, means this ideal of unity in diversity will be realized because it's the original impulse. The whole question is man the catalyst towards it? Because our human centric approach makes us believe we are the ones. Whatever we have to do, we will do. But there is not just a greater consciousness, a living being which is governing Earth's destiny. That's what our scriptures tell us, that, yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. So there is an intervention, there is a divine aid. As Sri Aurobindo says, we alive in a dead rotating universe. We whirl not here upon a casual globe, a divine intervention thrones above. And that intervention can anytime change the course of events, and many things which seem to be negative, strangely paradoxically, end up turning into a grand positive subsequently. The Mahabharata war is a living example. I mean, it would have seemed so negative. There is one man who is with his ambition, Duryodhana, and there are great warriors supporting him even when they know that he is wrong. What did he end up doing? So much destruction, okay. But India became united. That's the paradox, the ultimate result. That we had the birth of Bharatvarsh through the labor pains of Mahabharata. Before that, we have kingdoms and, totally divided, trying to form alliances. But the Mahabharata war, where, all these powers went away, and what was left were seeds of the new creation as Pandavas, and eventually, the child of Abhimanyu, Parikshit, who is himself like a new creation symbolically because he has died in the womb and reborn with the touch of Krishna. Symbolic story. So ultimately, there are human beings who are carrying the seeds of new creation. And even if there is a large-scale destruction of humanity, Mother has foreseen it. That's why I'm mentioning. Still, these seeds will survive and will be taken up and integrated into the new creation. So the world is full of hope. And I have only one reason for that hope, because God is here. There is a story of Martin Luther King that he would remain very depressed. And we know what he was fighting for. one day his wife tells him, there is a report, newspaper report. He says, what is it? Tell me, very, uh, in a depressed mood. She says, God is dead. He says, what nonsense. She said, if God is not dead, why are you so gloomy? So to me, all hope, all faith comes from this one fact of the divine presence, which is living, not inactive witness Purusha, but a living reality. And it's the story of Mahabharata where one Shri Krishna, Shakuni realized it and told Duryodhan, you made a wrong choice of the Chaturangini Sena of Narayan. He said, no, 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 we already have great warriors, we have many, and Krishna won't fight, and he's an idiot. He ended up only with Krishna unarmed. He says, you don't know. The unarmed Krishna will bring about the victory. So that is the factor which gives hope. Hope comes from that there is a divine reality, divine presence, and at least for me, that's the source of hope. All else are events which will lead us towards. Yes.
So you have touched upon this this one thing that is part of India's DNA, right?
Yes.
Our sense of the divine and our faith in the divine. So this next question is on India's role in the future of humanity. So Sri Aurobindo saw India not merely as a nation or even a civilization, but as a goddess, and he called her Bhavani Bharati, with a unique spiritual mission. So can you share more about this divine being, Bhavani Bharati, and what do you believe is her or India's deepest contribution that it could be to a world searching for peace, identity, and a new way of living together? So yeah, maybe once you answer that, I'll ask about the whole Vishwa Guru
yes.
title.
So Bhavani Bharati to me is a very deeply personal experience because I have had a vision of Mother India, and I saw her as the very old lady with a face which was covered up, and I was shown rather, because what can you see unless they show you the whole thing getting cleared and a radiant face shining forth. And I remembered what's, of course, at a much greater level, Swami Vivekananda had seen that Mother India appeared before him, chained and, sitting on the ground like a slave. And he asked her that, oh, Mother, why are you in this state? What should we do? And then suddenly, next moment, he sees her as a golden, queen sitting on a throne. He says, I can throw away these chains in one moment. But there is a reason why I am in this state. So Mother India, I had a vision of Mother Ganga also, so very deeply personal to me. And I can say these are very, very true occult realities. By occult, I simply mean that reality is not just this, 5 feet 11 inches body of bag and bones. If this is reality or the only reality, there is no hope and nothing worth pursuing, very frankly. So reality is where the origin is. That's the ultimate reality, and we must find it. So at the origin itself, just as each individual has a soul, each nation has a soul. And in India, why India refuses to be destroyed? If you really look at all the nations, civilizations, recently we had a movie on, the famous Odyssey. And what was Greece that time? I mean, it's so wonderful to look at the nobility and all that. But where is Greece? All that is gone. You'll probably find some statue. And so also with the Irish culture, with the Celtics, there are so many of them which have just gone away. I mean, Chaldeans and Mesopotamian. It's amazing, all flattened. Why did Bhartiyata survive? The Sanatan Dharma survive? Because it has always taken things from within outwards. So people say, how was India created? Often people wonder, India is created in the legend. So we have, Bharat Mata taking the form of a cow and going to the Lord. India is created by the legend of Sati, whose body, in 52 parts and thrown all over. And it comes so true. Look at the whole map of India, which includes, interestingly, Pakistan, what today is Pakistan. So I was saying, see, this is destined to unite because one of the Shakti Peeth in Pakistan is in Balochistan, Hinglaj Mata. So it's an occult action. India has been created through an occult process for a great work. So once we understand this, then we have to work at two levels. One is that inwardly, if we think India is only a country made up of, land masses, then actually it's not worth fighting. No place is worth fighting for. You should just have your own home and live happily with a born army, look after mutual interests. But the moment we understand it's not even just an idea or an ideal, it's a truth which is expressing itself. So Bhavani Bharati is not an image, not an idealist dream. She is for real. And India has been created in this way. Similarly, we see with other nations, what does France stand for? It stands for that great dream of fraternity and, the ideal which it embodied and went through Europe, fraternity, equality, and unity. And Sri Aurobindo says a yogi in Himalaya dreams about it, and there are nations which express it. So all the nations in the world, nations means true nations. There are a lot of artificial partitions which have come into play, but the nations which are embodiment of a soul, like I'll just give two examples, then I'll close this part, that what is a true soul and what are the artificial partitions. The British and the Irish, I mean, it's people put together as a united kingdom, but we all know that how united is the kingdom. Similarly, we see India and Pakistan. It's so unreal. If you really even speak to a person or hear a Pakistani, you don't know he's a Pakistani. You will be sure, at least somebody like me who has lived much in northern parts of India and in Punjab would probably take him that he's a Punjabi. So there is such similarity. But there has been an artificial divide created on the basis of, our religion or a misunderstanding of religion. And therefore, we see the divide. So there are nations which are embodiment of a soul, and their body must be complete to express itself. Whereas there are artificially created nations. And these artificial nations have been created out of human ambitions and political, much of Islamic conquest was political and ambition, not really a religious conquest. Religion was the bogey. So they are destined to disappear. And that's what we see with Pakistan happening, because it's the destiny. Ultimately, the soul fulfills itself. Maybe through a lot of bloodshed, that's the unfortunate part. Yes.
So today being Guru Purnima, and 7 years ago when I was called to lead a activate a citizens movement with like-minded people, it was around Guru Purnima, saying India has been destined to become the Vishwa Guru, right? So unfortunately, that has become more like right-wing rhetoric according to the rest of the world, and is tended to be looked down upon or laughed at even. Has it been hijacked by vested interests? But is there a truth underneath all that? And
Yes.
what is that Vishwa Guru? What will lead us to world unity?
So to start with, India was the Vishwaguru. I mean, without a doubt, look at the just pure facts, simply facts. While all the different histories in the world, different cultures, religions, many have been there, have vanished. And what we have now is last 2000 years, certain religions survive, but much has vanished. Why is it that, Sanatan Dharma, and if you see the timelines, it has survived. The Vedas not only survive, Vedas are engaging humanity, and not only in India, but world over. So definitely India has that light, and it has always been there like a beacon light for mankind. And one can very clearly see that earlier people came to India to look for material bounty, and they carried some spiritual riches by default. It's very interesting. I mean, people may be aware that the Bhagavad Gita was carried accidentally from India when the booties were carried. And it was discovered as a stolen material. Krishna has his way. And then people, immersion and all this, it went traveled far, and they started taking interest in what is this book? This is wonderful. We know that Mother herself in France, how she got a poor translation of Bhagavad Gita by, Gyanendra Nath Chakrabarti. Now Gita is great poets, great thinkers, or forward thinkers all over the world. So India has been a guru always. But only thing is that to be a guru, you have to, now it's rediscovering that status, you have to go through a lot more challenges. To be a guru means you have taken up all the various challenges of life and solved them within you. If you have not, you are not qualified to be a master. So India, because her destiny is to be a guru, it has taken all the challenges that vex humanity. For instance, so many languages, nowhere in the world, so many different types of humanity. If you just travel from far east to the west, and from up north in Kashmir to down south in Kerala, and in between, you will see this kind of variety of human beings, variety of so many things don't exist, not only cuisines, even though there is a common culture, yet it expresses so differently. And when you see that, then you realize, well, surely this is the country marked out to become the guru, because it has been given all the challenges. On one side, materialism; on the other side, spiritual seeking. So it's very evident it has to lead. Now, it is not about right wing, left wing. In fact, politics. Let me make it clear that politics is only an instrument. We give too much importance to politics and politicians. You can change parliament, you can change governments, you can change some systems, but how can you change human beings? So the same human beings will go sit on the throne and become tyrants. It's historically known that people overthrow tyrants. I mean, Napoleon is a classic example for that matter. Napoleon and Caesar are two very interesting examples. Napoleon is himself like, he came to crush that cry of the French Revolution, equality, fraternity, and unity. But he is the man who ended up actually doing it all over Europe because he was of that kind. Similarly, we see that Julius Caesar, and he is killed. But after his killing, very strangely, those who have murdered him, they wanted to kill him because, they didn't like that kind of monarchy. For 300 years, they established the Roman Empire. So there are paradoxes in life, paradoxes because God stands behind all these movements. Politics, I feel we have given over importance to it. Having said that, I do believe Mother has said that politics and money are the last things to change. And politics is a very, very deceptive thing, extremely. I was referring recently because of all this was happening. I said, see, as a 15-year-old, I have participated in Jayaprakash movement, done my quota of hunger strike, went to the jail for a day. So I understand the forces that work. The forces that work in politics are very, very ugly. Now, I'm not speaking of this party or that party, but in general. Having said that, definitely narratives or what you say is your main goal does matter. So if I have to today choose a party, not about this or that party, I would definitely choose a party which is going to speak about, at least, which is bringing forward the ideas of those who are the true sons of the soil, both spiritually and materially, like Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, and who at least speak of Sanatan Dharma. They may not understand, but at least they will be somewhere sympathetic to its cause. That's all politics can do. Or there are others who can oppose it actively. But if we believe that an act will be passed in the parliament and there'll be a new world, that's absolutely nonsense. And that has been always the case. See, what was the role of kings in ancient times in India? How did India become the Vishwaguru? Vishwaguru was not because of the kings, it was because of the yogis. There was Vasisht Rishi's ashram, Vishwamitra, and many others. Now, Agast Rishi's ashram, they got the patronage of the kings. So kings have to be about governance, and they must be fair in their governance. They must be good. Any party, any left, right, or center, they should be fair in their dealings. They should be good governance. That's what we want from kings. But at the same time, they should ensure that those who are ready and willing, who are being prepared as instruments of the divine to bring out this new change, this catalyst, Sanatan Dharma as the seed of the future, not Sanatan Dharma as a kitchen spirituality by all means, but Sanatan Dharma as the widest possible way of life. And they must be, at least there should be some kind of not patronate, but the role of the politics is to make sure that they can do their task freely. So to that extent, politics has a role. But I don't believe the change will come by the politicians. In fact, if the politicians change, it's a sign that the change has actually come. Because politics and money is the most resistant 2 points. That's what Mother said. So hope is on individuals. And I think the one thing which we should focus on is not political establishment. That plays a role secondary, but education. Because it's in education that we'll find the real change when children grow up. Mother herself opened the center of education where she speaks about the same ideals to what Sri Aurobindo believed in and what he lived for and how an education system can really bring that forward. And I believe that the change will come through education, through educators, and through children. In ancient times, it was Gurukul. But now in the modern context, it will be through schools and education. Well, I'm using the word school in a very general sense, not as they are practiced now, but schools must change, education system must change. It should go back to those ancient roots where right from beginning, children grow up and breathe in this atmosphere which India brings. And if the political establishment can allow it or at least help that come up, I think that's more than enough. Rest, constitution and all will take care over a period of time. So I see hope in education, and education in the sense of a universal education at home, outside, everywhere. All of us are learners and beginners and educators and amateur. So at every level, education is the key.
So I'll come to that later, what we just witnessed with the Gen Z uprising, but that's not now. I want to close on this question with, we use words like right wing, left wing, center. These are Western ideas.
Yes.
We are an ancient civilization. We had frameworks and constructs for governing ourselves. So what is it from our own roots and our own civilization that offers a governance philosophy which doesn't use polarizing language?
Yes. So we have used polarizing language. We used the word, of course, religious word was not used, but secular word was used. Now, this is a completely Western concept. Absolutely, completely. In India, this word had no meaning because, where is it that we can say that the now religion, not in the sense of the, standard Western format, but religion in India was interwoven with life. That's how Sri Aurobindo says. When the child is being conceived, there is the spiritual aspect. When the child is born, there is the spiritual aspect. It's interwoven in the culture everywhere. So now if you cut it off, the first problem started when we use the word secular, whatever be the intent, I'm not going into it, by the 42nd Amendment, though at the beginning it was debated, then we actually cut off a very fundamental principle of Sanatana Dharma, that God seeking, I'm not dropping the word religion because it has two meanings, a meaning in the Indian context and a different meaning in the Western concept or the Semitic religion. But here, God is everywhere in India, right from conception. Even if I keep telling people, if you read even the Kama Sutra, you will see that there is the divine reality even there. They invoke, there is a preparation. It's not a sexual act to have a child or a way to just stop the progeny, which is so biological, so meaningless. So everywhere we see in India, at every level, there is the divine who is into life. And we have to make this divine a living reality in every sphere. So now right wing, left wing is of course an absurd thing. So when we speak about governance, how does the divine manifest himself in governance? Well, if you have to do justice, you do justice. You have to have a fair dealing. You may believe in God or not believe in God, that's not the issue. But how? And even there, when we look, how does divine govern this world? I say, I'd written once an article that, look, every profession finds its origin in the divine. How does he heal? How does he govern? How does he, make sure that, how does he teach? How does he mend the, instrument, like, mending within the body? Every profession owes its origin in the divine. And we should, even parenting, everything. So we should try to draw our inspiration and breath from there. It doesn't matter right wing, left wing. I completely agree. It has created, unfortunately, a great divide, something which should never have been there. It's purely a Western construct, and it works in that framework, or doesn't work anymore. They are also realizing. But a good governance is a good governance. It should be based on principles of equity. It should not be based on quotas and this and that. It's good governance is good governance. There should be equality. There should be unity. There should be fraternity. Good governance should ensure that. It doesn't matter. Now, fraternity is a key in everywhere, every religion. But fraternity in a non-religious sense or a super religion or spiritual sense means we all understand, we all have a common origin, the divine origin. We may use different approaches and different names. And therefore, we have to respect each other's impulsion toward the divine. The moment we, again, automatically from there, things like forced conversions, all this will go away because, well, if you feel within naturally, nobody stops anyone. But there are many approaches to the one divine, and we must encourage that impulse wherever it is, in whatever religion, doesn't matter. Like Sufism in India, for example, to take one example of two extremes. Sufism flourished so beautifully at one point of India, along with the traditional Indian Hindu thought. There is a beautiful little story where Rahim goes to Tulsidas. You know, Rahim is a court a philosopher, yogi, also in a way saintly man. And he is very fond of Tulsidas, and they are two good friends. So when Tulsidas is not too well, he sends word that, well, I'll take care of you. You come live in the palace with me. I'll take care of you. And he laughs and says, you know who is taking care of me? The divine is taking care of me in my hut. You want me to go elsewhere? And he understands. So there was a time when hardcore religion was not hardcore. It allowed, it had its sympathy. Even in early Christianity, we see that there are sympathies with other approaches. Now people say, why has it become hardcore? Well, the moment the complete consciousness becomes externalized and starts believing that external rituals, external things are religion, then that religion will destroy itself. But its core is always the same. It's turning toward the divine through whatever form. So a reform in religion is needed by those in that each religion. That look here, let's catch the core. The external things change. And if people don't change, it is going to be destroyed by the advancing wave of time. What has happened in Europe? 4/5 of churches, 80% of the churches in England are empty.
Yes.
The so-called left wing, how did it come into existence? Because people were sick and tired of a very lopsided view of religion. So we have to understand, but nobody is against the idea that, let's, unite together. Let's be free in the spirit. Now, when we don't do it, then what happens? There is a kind of thought comes which calls itself liberal, but becomes extremely intolerant of certain approaches. We all know that because you have left that place empty. So it's important for all spiritual thinkers, including someone like you, to bring forward this new paradigm that we don't have to bring God in a fixed way, but there is a higher consciousness, there is a spiritual consciousness in which we can come together and in which we can make operative in everyday life. And we can even show that how in different cultures it has been there, but then it became very hardened and everything got, destroyed. So those external aspects, because of the extreme Kali Yuga, and they are also helping because many people are turning away from that. I know many Muslims, many people in Pakistan. One of the girls who used to, send Rakhi to me, a Muslim girl, she died mysteriously, but many who are so beautifully open to something higher, but they don't have a voice because politics is still governed by extreme ideas. But I feel things are changing. That's where Gen Z comes. They have to
Yes.
not deny the spiritual. They have to innobe or cut from the root. They have to bring in the true meaning of spiritual. And they can do it.
Let me frame the question then, right? So the inner transformation and collective change. So many people wonder whether inner work really matters when the world's problems seem so overwhelming. So, how do individual transformation and collective transformation influence one another? And can lasting peace ever be created without a change in human consciousness? So, in this, I'm also referencing the Gen Z uprising we just witnessed in India, seeking education reforms. But coming back to that inner transformation needed for collective change, could you speak to that?
Yes, so we'll come to the Gen Z a little later, but very simple. I'll give you a very simple example that an extreme form of communism speaks about the imbalance of wealth and it wants to create it and uh, with the barrel of a gun in its extreme form. Not all socialist ideas say that, but basically, deep within, the principle is that there should be equitable distribution of wealth. It's a nice thing. Everybody should have sufficient money to take care of their needs without a doubt. But why is the imbalance actually taking place? The roots are greed. The moment you open doors to money, human greed takes over. Now, when you forcibly try to make a system outwardly, then the greed has not gone. It will find other avenues. Those who are seemingly advocating a kind of governance will become greedy in another way. So ultimately, without the inner transformation, simply manipulating systems, because man is the same. He is still greedy. He is still full of fear. When a person is full of fear, he will start suspecting every word spoken, like what happened during this. Everything that someone speaks, there is a response of fear, vengeance, anger, because the consciousness is full of that. Now, there is not, if when the consciousness is full of peace, we have the classic example of Rama and Ravan. Rama is facing Ravan. He has done every possible the rule book thing to make sure that he gets angry and he finishes and he has the hegemony. But Ram remains very quiet, firm, steadfast, even when he's killing. So even in war, an extreme situation like war, even business, let alone other things, an inner state of peace, equanimity, opening to the higher consciousness, we'll feel supported. It is something so wonderful. I have had so many examples. I mean, those who have gone to Sikkim, and I do say that people should go. If you go to, Nathula Pass and you go to that border, and even in J&K, if you really go to the heights, you will see there's so many passages from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's not that Muslims, Sikh, or Hindus, they are so inspiring that the body is but dust, the soul lives forever. And they don't care whether they're all from Bhagavad Gita, whether it's from this or that scripture. It's so inspiring that when you're fighting a war, this is the war cry. When on the borders, many of our people, they use the slogan, not slogan, but a mantra to charge themselves is Jai Bhavani. Mm-hmm. They say this. And they don't care the time, it's Muslim, Hindu, and everybody, because they know that they are invoking a greater spirit. So it can come, provided we understand that India is a living reality and the Gen Z is getting dislocated from that, is being led into that direction. It's for land, it's for money that you have to fight, it's for position you have to fight. Okay, all those things have a place. But you have to first of all be the warrior inside within you. And who is going to teach these lessons? For example, I was horrified watching, since you spoke about Gen Z, I was watching the protest and, the kind of shameful things or abusive language and subsequent dances. I understand there must have been some nice things also. But point is that if you don't educate yourself inside and grow into individuals who are worthy, India is a country where we honored even the noble cobbler. Mirabai leaves the palace and goes to Sant Ravidas to gain knowledge, and he is a cobbler. And he says, why are you coming to me? Same with Bulle Shah, to take another Sufi example. So Bulle Shah goes to a farmer and says, teach me the true knowledge. He says, you're coming from the family of prophets. Who am I to teach you? He says, no, that doesn't teach me this which I want. And he says, pick up from here and put it there. He says in Punjabi, "Aithe chu gote rakh." Take your consciousness from here and put your consciousness there. So we have to bring out these thoughts. And I think, again, school is the right place. By the time Gen Z becomes what they are already, because the forces of falsehood are very, very active. It's not their fault, it's just their outreach. And it's important, urgent, incumbent, and in all of us who are, in a way, a kind of thought leaders, given by destiny this role. None of us probably wanted it, but it has been given, thought leaders and spiritual leaders, that we should bring out the true sense of spiritual teaching, which is there everywhere in every scripture. And then people will understand. I mean, that from childhood it should be there. In fact, I was mentioning this and I had sent this message also. Please, in India, keep Bhagavad Gita as as a course book, right from childhood. People should know. It's not, and the Gita, very interestingly, doesn't talk about any god with a particular name. It speaks about Purushottama. It speaks about the supreme reality. It speaks about the Atman, the self. And why not? Because this is the land where this truth is here. And why should the children be deprived of this? Because some people will feel bad. You give them the teaching, they will understand that it's not to convert them. Let them remain whatever they want to be, Muslim, Christian. We don't believe in conversion, but we believe in truth, and truth should reach out. What is there in the Vedas? They don't know. And that's because Vedas are our civilizational gifts. In Pakistan, their civilization ends 100 years back. They don't teach in history. I have discussions with friends and they say that we don't know. But in India also, they don't know what the Vedas are. Why not? It's our civilization, isn't it? It's our background. In America, they don't teach, it's okay. But here, it's our civilization, and what a wonderful civilization. We should have the Vedas, we should have something on the Upanishad, but no need to convert anyone. It should be there. And we should not say, okay, since we have it, therefore we should have Quran and Bible. No, it's because people are free to follow whatever they want to, but it's a civilizational asset. We are speaking of a civilization, and therefore, I think it should start from there. That's why Gen Z, who are well-meaning, they are the usherers of the change, but they have not been guided either at home. At home, they are all into competition and getting a job, earning money still. And well, when they grow up, there is a big net of all kinds of falsehood which enters into them. So there is a need, urgent need, pressing need. It's coming up. Now I see many persons who have taken up this work of very beautifully bringing out the truths which are there in Sanatana Dharma. It's necessary for Gen Z to be aware. Many of them are ignorant, genuinely ignorant. Some are vicious, and that, of course, is a different subject altogether.
Yeah. So, kind of building on your answer, we're looking for a new civilization, right? So, if humanity were to evolve beyond the consciousness of competition and separation, what would leadership, education, and even the relationship between nations begin to look like? What are the first signs of this new civilization already appearing? Have you seen that? Can you give an example?
Yes, so we'll take the first part and then the second part about the science. But the first part is that, well, education should be equal for all. There's no doubt about that. There should be no distinction at the education level. After the graduation, it's a differentiation which takes place. But when we say equal for all, the big problem today in education is, again, because of the secular word, that the spiritual dimension is completely missing. It is confused with religious. But therefore, these children grow up deprived. They sometimes hear a talk here and there, have so many interaction all over the world. And they are just waiting, they are thirsty. They don't have. They read physics disconnected from other aspects of life, physics disconnected from the spirit. But everything is connected with the deeper truth. And I have spoken about it. Mathematics, you can connect with the one consciousness, one and zero, I keep saying, is the origin. And teach them so that through mathematics they learn that 0 and 1 are two sides of one reality. And then it becomes 2, and then the 3, and it's so wonderful. I've spoken to children, biology, how, the brain and the heart are two important nerve centers. But is it only biologically? I can go on giving example. History, as waves that rise and fall. Waves that rise, and what really leads to the rise, how civilizations collapse, how they re-emerge. So when we really look at those, we really grow wise, we grow mature. But today we have just outer facts and performance. And one of the things that must go is this kind of examination system where children now begin to, do things only for, getting marks, and everything is marks based. This is so dangerous, and a lot of even recent problems. So when you have only marks, no temperament, then you may have a doctor. I mean, being a medical doctor, I can say that who is basically a man who wants to cut, he's a pickpocketer, and he may become a doctor. And what happens after that? During Corona, actually, people made a lot of money. They built three-storied houses simply because they were not doctors by temperament. They were pickpocketers, not even businessmen. So there should be some kind of understanding of basic temperament at a very early stage, maybe when the child is in ninth, and there should be an assistance that what are your natural field, what was called as Swabhava and Swadharma. So this is a big change which is needed. There are children who may be wonderful sportsmen. You have put everybody into NEET examination or MBBS examination, parents, everybody. So it doesn't work like that. Some will succeed, some won't succeed. That's not the issue. Even if he succeeds, I know of children who went into MBBS and committed suicide. They were never meant for it. They were not meant. And then you place this is greater, this is lesser. A lot of change in our thinking is required. So if I have to earn money by becoming a doctor, what's the big deal then? I might as well become a businessman. So, I mean, the whole thing structure, the inner software has to change. So at many levels, the work has to take place with regard to Gen Z. And I feel it should start with parents and the schools, because parents themselves don't know. They are quite confused. And schools, there's no spiritual education. There is no what mothers used as psychic education. Say somebody who has got a psychic education, which we used to get as children in our homes. I mean, I have grown up like that. So when I read the Ramayana and the stories, I knew that sign of a noble person is this. It was not like whether Ram is God or not. But you know what a noble person should be. So it inbuilt within me certain things for which I am ever grateful. It doesn't matter. So psychic education is that which makes us instinctively love that which is true, which is beautiful and good. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Why do we associate it with religion? I don't know. It should be everywhere. Same with spirituality. There is something beyond mind, ascend beyond mind. Who is saying that you have to do it via, Ramji or Rahimji? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that's the
Thank
whole.
you.
Yeah.
So,
Second part of the question was about
what are the first signs of this new
oh,
civilization?
plenty sign. The discontent itself is a sign. When how does if I'm comfortable in my comfort zones, I don't seek. That was the problem that happened in US. Capitalist country. I will make whole life comfortable. So what happens when life becomes too comfortable? There is a restlessness like the chick inside the egg. So there is another kind of restlessness that comes. So that restlessness, unfortunately, started expressing as counterculture. See, very strangely, counterculture came up there. We want no education. Pink Floyd and whatever, Paul McCartney, all this came up as a revolt, angst. And Beatles came to Indian gurus, learned. So when you provide everything comfortably, then at one level, people stop growing. And because it is there as a nascent seed in human being, they'll be very unhappy. So it's important to open the doors and windows wide open. And this is happening today. Now, why it is happening is because schools are being bypassed. See, the beauty today is that today we don't have to go to, because, well, Ramayana, Gita, and many other deeper aspects of, spiritual life are not available in classroom, but they are available all through. And children are now exposed and open. So we have to understand this, that, well, these children are seekers and they're looking for this seeking unrest. Women freedom is a very palpable change. I mean, 40s, I think Audrey Hepburn wearing a pant and shirt was too much, even in America. Voting rights. So Youth, women, very clearly we can see. Children, their intelligence level, now people use the word autism in 30-year-old and 35-year-old and they feel very happy about it. It's not autism. They are having energies. They don't know where to direct. They are very distracted. They try this, they try that because they don't really understand what they're looking for. But actually, it is nothing else but the extra boost of energy which they learn to handle. So there is a need to show them the way. Then there are other uprisings also. For example, this itself, I would say right now we have the sign. Uh, we have so many people who have joined. Many of them, I don't know. I'm just saying blindly, many of them would be youngsters. I mean, I have a forum, Ask Alokda, only for questions. Anybody can ask. There are quite a few who are young children, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 7-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, asking questions which are so wonderful. So change is happening where it's happening. Unfortunately, we are looking at it in the parliament. If parliament changes, know that the new world has come. Parliament will only pass an act. Well, hallelujah, new world has come. It's the last seat of resistance and the finances. Financial world is changing. See, there was a time when we used to accumulate money as cash. It's a very bad habit. It led to so many problems in so many ways. Even to the individual, it's a very, it generates greed, the tendency to hoard. Now it's going. Much of the money has become, so money is circulating much more freely because you have your wallet is on your phone. People are exposed to all the different kinds of cultures. Initially, there was a clash. Now there is you see, when first time an Indian got married to even an Indian girl, but who came from a different thing, there was so much of cry. But now these things are becoming norm. Now we may like it or not like it, but this is how nature works. It's created culture, counterculture, clash, conflict, and joining, clasp of civilizations. This is how the world advances. Many, many signs are there at every level.
So to kind of, we do want to keep some time for questions. We can go
Yes.
beyond the hour for another
Yes.
15 minutes. But in these last closing ones, to end on a note of hope, after decades of studying and living Sri Aurobindo's vision, what gives you, Alokda, the greatest hope for humanity?
See, for me, it's the grace of the Divine Mother. I started as somebody who had lost hope. Let me start with that. Not with myself, very fortunate, first shot, got through MBBS, got very good marks, MD, my choice, armed forces, wonderful. But this goal of life, purpose of life, made me feel that I don't want to just be another guy earning money and, that's absurd. Go abroad, get a lot of money. It seemed so stupid, to say the least. And then Sri Aurobindo walked into my life. And then I said, let me discover what he's saying as the psychic being. And I can tell you, with that discovery came the hope. Because now I know, not just as an intellectual thing, but for sure, that the divine dwells in everyone. That we are not left abandoned to a task beyond our force. As Sri Aurobindo says, we whirl not here upon a casual globe, uh, abandoned to a task beyond our force. A mighty guidance leads us till through. So there is a divine guidance in life. It works through all the anomalies. It uses our sins, sorrows, tears, everything. 3 lines from Savitri. It says, one who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. Now, with this, I will complete this because this is a living realization for me. And Sri Aurobindo expresses it so beautifully in Savitri. One who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. He's not just a Sakshi Purush. He works. Our errors are his steps upon the way. Like children, fall, learn, grow. He works through the fierce vicissitudes of our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. He works through our sins, our sorrows, and our tears. Whatever the appearance we must bear, when nothing we can see but drift and bail, whatever our strong ills and present fate, When nothing we can see but drift and veil, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. Now I know for sure that there is a guidance, and I can look at it even logically, historically, when we see after the Second World War, there were hardly anybody who had survived among the warriors. Everything perished. And today, once again, we see, so much has come up. Humanity has moved under what impulsion? So there is a guidance in life, and that is the divine guidance. It knows its way, it knows its aim. It now, if somebody asks me uh, what we should do, so I say the same thing: find the divine presence within you. Then the guidance will come. Then you will understand. Otherwise, yes, mentally we can give 100 propositions, and this is becoming now the urge, the angst of the Gen Z, ultimately to find that factor Z or factor X inside them. They carry it. And they are turning. I know many children who are turning. Initially, there will be few, then it'll have a cascading effect. Even in this most recent Gen Z protest, I can share this now. One of the persons, I won't name, who was on the main hunger strike. I know the family, and his wife's son, he wrote to me saying that why, but don't you think you are being biased? And he's a very nice, sweet boy. I know him since childhood. So I gave a reply. I said, see, it's not about, I understand your impulse, but is this the way, by doing this kind of and I narrated all the things, hooliganism, you think this is how the new world and new creation is going to be ushered? Is this what Sri Aurobindo speaks about resistance? So I answered him, well, whether it was an effect of that letter or not, I do not know. But just after 24 hours, he broke the fast, the main person, everybody walked away. So there are people who are genuine, but they get misguided, misled. They don't know the way. They don't know that changing themselves will precipitate the change outside. I mean, the first butterfly, the first few, the morphogenetic resonance, I do believe in that. That first thing is man must change. That's the central message. And man is changing. That's the whole. And he's changing not only through a conscious aspiration through all the events. They are hitting him from every side, that he is left eventually with nothing else but turn within to seek something greater, something higher. And I have many, many examples of such people. So the divine is pushing from every side. Yeah.
We have a question building on that. How is Gen Z in the light of Sri Aurobindo's supramental light? Now, how is that coming down through
Okay.
Gen Z?
So the first few Gen Zs, Mother has given a long plan between man as he stands today and the supramental being. And people must know that they spoke about many abortive intermediary species. To take an example, the transition from the fish to the amphibian was not a single leap. There was the mudfish. Mudfish is a very strange, awkward creature. It jumps out of the river because it wants to be unique and different, but lands up in the mud because its fins, still breathe water. So it's a very uncomfortable feature. Those who want to see, they can read about the mudfish. And it breathes somehow in that muddy water. Then it leaps because that water will finish, leaps into another little muddy mud pool. But eventually, though the mudfish vanishes, what takes birth ultimately is the tadpole and the salamander. So same thing is happening today. There will be many washout generations, unfortunately, but some will carry the seeds. After all, what is common about all of them? They want a change. The problem is they don't know how to bring the change. I'm talking of the genuine Gen Z, not those who joined, who were hooligans and vested interests. They need to be dealt with by the law. I'm not speaking of that. I'm talking of many, many misguided beings are there, and you can't go there and talk to them about it. But there is a guidance which is carrying them, each through his own experiences, and they will eventually, if they are genuine, if they are really crying for the change, they will discover it because of this guidance. I myself seen it. As I said, at 15, I sat for Dharna JP movement. I was part of that. And very soon I was made to see there is a falsehood in all this, though the JP himself is a nice person. But all political parties that time in 76 across the board were all just waiting to use the youth for their purposes. It was so clear. So basically, those who are genuine will get the guidance. Guidance is inside. They will suddenly come across something. Their thoughts will change. They will begin to, usher the change. But many of them will probably pass away in one life, two lives, who knows, couple of lives, just seeking but not finding. And that's why it's important that there should be teachers who release this knowledge. It's available now, like this podcast. Who knows, somebody to whom it has to reach, it will reach. That's where the providence comes in, and all the forces which are also very active now to reach out good things and beautiful things to those who are seeking. We should trust that.
That's beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps. So there's a question from Neela Saxena. Thank you for a wonderful talk. You spoke about paradox, which is a complex understanding of reality. Being comfortable with paradox is not easy for most people, but without having at least some understanding of the nature of reality, it is hard to make right choices. So the question is, what kind of education system do you visualize that will aspire for that to happen?
Yes, very beautifully put actually about paradoxes. Though I wanted to touch upon India itself being a land of paradoxes, because India can resolve it. And from that, I'll take why India can resolve it, because India, Sanatan Dharma is innately wide and very plastic. It's not a very rigid way of life. So basically, to deal with paradoxes, the consciousness must grow wide and become plastic and supple, meaning thereby it should not start taking an either or position. One of the problems of paradoxes, like as I said, spirituality or materialism, good or bad. Well, many things are not really like that. They are moving on an axis. Every Ratnakar is a potential Valmiki. Every, Jad Bharat is a potential yogi or a latent yogi inside. So we have to understand this, that, well, paradoxes are shock the human mind, but if the mind grows wide enough, then it can see the right place of everything. So Vedic rishis had a very good term for it, and it was the things they sought for was Satyam, Ritam, Urahatam. So Satyam means the foundation of creation. There should be that should be clarity, it should be there. If the foundation is pure material, then everything else collapses. Let's start with that. If the foundation is spiritual and there is enough logical reasoning, because if there was no foundation, at the foundation, no consciousness, there would be no consciousness emerging from matter. I know it's a big debate, but I'm just compressing it. That whatever we see in creation, existence, consciousness, bliss, and the seeking for more and more of that is at the foundation, Satchidanand. So truth is the base. Truth in that sense, not just truth, at every level it applies, but fundamental truth. Foundation. Then the vastness. How this truth expresses itself in countless ways. So that we have to keep in mind. We can't say that in me it is like this, therefore it should be like that in everyone. Not necessary. Truth is infinite. But then when we say truth is infinite and expresses in each one in its own way, is there a right arrangement of things? So that's where Rit comes in, which is so important. Rit, there is an English word which corresponds with rhythm. So there is a right place and a right time for everything. And we must understand that. That's where everything is missing. Nobody says that, earning money is bad, earning money is required. But if you say earning money is the goal, then you are cheating yourself and going towards. So money is an instrument. Everything is an instrument. Studying, developing your mind, all this is important. But if you say that mind can know God, then you are creating a problem, because the divine consciousness transcends the mind. But mind can become a powerful, beautiful instrument to express the divine reality. So same with even Warcraft, the Vital, we had 64 Vidyas at one point of time. So paradox resolution is not as either or a forced compromise. Paradox can be resolved if you know the relative place of everything. And it makes choices very easy. How Mirabai made a choice. So many of them made choice. So when we understand the relativity of things, not relativity in a very general sense that all is relative, but in a ascending hierarchy, which leads us toward the doors of the infinite, then it becomes very easy to make choices and very easy to integrate, synthesize, There are two chapters in the Life Divine on ascent and integration. The spiritual should not deny material, but take it up, turn it into an instrument of the spirit. So when there are two opposing viewpoints, children should be given this exercise and how they can create a synthesis, let's say between capitalism and communism. They should be able to find the right synthesis. So this should be a training given right from childhood. And minds which grow wide because of the touch of grace, then it automatically becomes easy for them. Everything has its rightful place. Take it out of its place, then it creates chaos.
I feel we have arrived at a very beautiful closing. Everything you have shared today is that we need a higher consciousness that can integrate polarities and differences. And there is always that X factor, that the divine intervention that we have to have the faith in that will move us towards itself. And that is what this land of India and Bharata has always held on to and not lost track of. You had said you would like to close with reading something. So
yes.
Suddenly I saw some questions. So I don't know if you want to quickly look at them.
Sure.
Thank you, Alok, for uplifting words as usual. Do you believe that our spiritual evolution is going to be led by the peripheral humanity living closer to nature, or in the globalized humanity that lives in the globalized comfort? And there's a follow-on question from Prashanta. Is it possible to go back to Gurukul education in system in India in the near future?
Yes. So, both questions have a common issue in a sense that time has moved forward. We can't go back. Like we can't go back, for example, to Raghunandar or Manu, though they are beautiful. I don't believe in, what people say. They have their own defects, but by and large, if you read the scriptures, we have to go forward. So time moves forward. So now the fact is that, problem with globalization and all that we see today is back to nature. What was happening in nature when there is not much disturbance outside, you can go inside with relative ease. You can discover the truth relatively easily. Now we have to do it under these circumstances. Now, there was I think it was a film called Buddha in the Traffic Jam. No, that was a different movie. But there was a movie which is about being a Buddha while you are in the midst of surroundings. And though it is very challenging, more difficult, but in the end, it is more fulfilling and more integrating. So that's one sign of it is the Aurobindo ashram. Mother made it totally connected with life, totally conterminous with life. Every activity is represented here because that's how life is presented. It's a challenge life is presented, and we will evolve to integrate it. And the same applies that Gurukul system in the traditional way will be difficult because the gurus are not here. You can make a formal structure. You can make a man wear dhoti, for example, but he has to guru me is a very serious thing. It's a serious business. And what he meant by that is guru is somebody you take two routes. One is heavy. He is the heavyweight. He has realized consciousness is full of all that, fullness. And other ways, the word gu is about light, and he leads the way toward the light. So such people are very few. So what is important is Gurukul, yes, but in the modern way. Gurukul in the sense, Gurukul, they were allowed to explore life. They didn't have a fixed syllabus which they have to read. Those aspects of the Gurukul, not like children will be given a formal teaching and the way it is portrayed in one of the movies, which was horrifying. I mean, that's not what Gurukul ever was. But Gurukul allowed children to explore nature. Look at how Satyakam was trained into Brahma Vidya by, Rishi Gautam. So first of all, he asked him, tell me, young man, 5-year-old, you want to study here. Who's your dad? He says, I don't know, but I just know my mother. And he goes and asks his mother. Mother says, I don't know. I was working in many people's home when I conceived you. So I don't know who your dad is, but I am for sure I'm your mother. And when this boy goes and tells the Guru, Rishi, he says, a woman who can say with such courage is so truthfully, she's of a very high order. And therefore, you who has been able to say this so openly, you are welcome because you are capable. Eventually, Satyakam becomes a guru himself. So, Guru in the real sense, the Gurukul is not what we conceive today. And in Gurukul, there was no, like ashram. See, one Ved, what was his name? I'm forgetting. Vedang Alankar, who had translated many Vedas, when the Vedas and Upanishads, when he came here to the ashram, he was so thrilled. He said, now I can die peacefully because I was waiting that the Vedic vision should manifest somewhere. He found it in the ashram school. Now, what is there in the ashram school? They wear normal half pant, they wear shirt. There is no such dress code. They are not learning fourth Sanskrit syllabus. They are not necessarily being taught everybody Vedas and Upanishads or a compulsory Dincharya. But they develop those aspects which were taught. They can explore life, but always there is a teacher who helps them to understand. They can take up a project. Like Taradi was given a project, we all know. At 15, she said, I don't want to study. So mother said, what do you want to do? She said, photography. She said, okay, take the camera, start. So Gurukul in that sense requires a big change in the education system, because immediate problem will be when these children grow out. Is society ready to accept them? We still want marks, we still want competition, then we have dharna and all that. These children would develop exploring themselves. There have been experiments. Ashram school is one of such places. There are other places where you allow the child to blossom, flourish, so that his truth comes out. It will be a modern adaptation of Gurukul as it was. That's what Gurukul was. They were not given degrees, and based on that, they had jobs. So we have to first work on that level. And I think the idea of teaching children skills and training them into skill was an excellent idea, because you bring out the child's swabhav and so then equip him to earn a good livelihood. And then he advances and develops. If he is good, he'll flourish to anything. So that's how I look at this idea.
Thank you so much, Alokda. I know with you we can have many hours. Even 75 minutes isn't enough, but it's been so comprehensive. And I would love for you to read your selection for today as a closing.
Yes. So just a moment. So what I had taken out was something else. Okay. But as it closed with India and the world, I feel inspired to read something else. I had taken out something from Human Cycle on, it's only in the soul that we'll find the secret of fraternity, unity, and freedom. That's what I had taken out. But let me close with an invocation to Mother India by the Divine Mother. On 15th August 1947, it's a meditative prayer. She writes, "Oh, our Mother." See, because you spoke about Bhavani Bharti, we know about Durga's throat. But here, Mother, Divine Mother, is invoking the soul of India. Oh, our Mother, oh, soul of India, Mother, who has never forsaken thy children, even in the days of darkest depression, even when they turned away from thy voice, served other masters, and denied thee. Now, when they have arisen, and the light is on thy face in this dawn of thy liberation, in this great hour, we salute thee. Guide us so that the horizon of freedom opening before us may be also a horizon of true greatness and of thy true life in the community of the nations. Guide us so that we may be always on the side of great ideals and show to men thy true visage as a leader in the ways of the Spirit and a friend and helper of all the peoples. With this prayer in the heart, I add that may this prayer be fulfilled in our lives and in India and in the world. Jen.
Jai Ma. Jai Hind.
Jen.
What a perfect closing, Alok Da, on Guru Purnima to pray that the soul of India helps show India to world unity and helps India take the world to unity. What a lovely, from partition, to world unity. May that be a beautiful arc.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. We will see you hopefully in the other upcoming sessions. There are several lined up for the week. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Jen.
Good night. Thank you
Good.
so much.
Good.
Alok.